What a pair, Vivian sneered, her voice slicing through the tension like a blade. She stood in the doorway of the prison's central control room, surrounded by chaos and flickering emergency lights. The reformed drunk and the frightened little girl who grew up to wear a badge. "Tell me, Olivia, has he begged for your forgiveness yet?" Olivia stared her down, unfazed, her voice sharp and measured. "No. Because I didn't need him to. I needed him to change. And he did." Lucas stepped forward, his expression hard. "It's over, Vivian. We have everything. The files, the names, the accounts." Vivian smirked, then held out her wrists for the cuffs. "Then you better be ready for what comes next. Because you just declared war on people far above your pay grade. Before we dive into how the hell this moment came to be, the warden, her drunk husband, a power-hungry inmate, and a riot that changed everything, make sure to like this video, comment your favorite moment as the story unfolds, and subscribe to Fanciko's story so you don't miss what happens next. You're going to want to hear all 10 chapters of this wild, emotional, high-stakes prison drama based on true events. Now let's rewind, back to the very beginning. Olivia sat alone in the kitchen, the dim glow of the clock on the stove indicating it was already past 3 in the morning. Her 5th cup of coffee sat forgotten, growing cold beside her trembling fingers. It wasn't caffeine that kept her awake, but anxiety, an endless loop of worries about her husband, Lucas. Lucas had not come home yet, and this wasn't the first night he'd vanished into the bottle. In fact, the nights he'd come home sober were becoming frighteningly rare. Olivia had long given up suspecting infidelity, realizing that Lucas's mistress was far crueler. Alcohol. Tonight, though, felt different. It felt like a breaking point. Olivia rose wearily from her seat, walking toward the living room window, peering outside, hoping to see the familiar headlights pulling into the driveway. Nothing. Only darkness greeted her, reflecting the emptiness she felt inside. Lucas, the once prominent lawyer, the man whose charisma had captivated courtrooms and whose intellect had inspired respect, was now drowning in drink. His professional downfall had been swift, brutal, and incredibly painful for both of them to witness. She sighed deeply, placing her forehead against the cool glass, thinking of the promise Lucas had made when they married, that he'd never become like her father. Olivia shuddered involuntarily, the echoes of her childhood trauma resurfacing. Memories of her father's violent outbursts, her mother's quiet sobbing in the bedroom, her own silent vows to escape a similar fate, all painfully vivid tonight. She was snapped out of her reverie by the distant, uneven sound of tires crunching gravel. Olivia straightened her back, heart pounding, as Lucas's car staggered into the driveway. Relief battled anger within her. She watched from the shadows as Lucas fumbled his way out of the car, almost stumbling onto the driveway. Olivia braced herself as Lucas noisily unlocked the front door. He crashed inside, flicked on the lights, and staggered toward the kitchen. His disheveled appearance spoke volumes. Untucked shirt stained with liquor, tie dangling loosely around his neck, hair messy, eyes glazed and unfocused. "Well, look who's still awake, our mighty Warden," Lucas slurred mockingly, leaning against the doorway. He tried to appear nonchalant, but the bitterness behind his words cut deep. Olivia took a calming breath. "Lucas, this has to stop. You can't keep doing this to yourself, to us." He chuckled sarcastically, grabbing the edge of the kitchen counter to steady himself. "Doing what?" "Enjoying myself. You should try it sometime, Olivia. Maybe you'd finally relax a little." "Enjoying yourself? You think destroying your life is enjoyable?" Olivia's voice cracked, despite her best efforts to remain composed. She took a step toward him, desperation tinged in her eyes. "I can't watch this anymore. I refuse to let you drag both of us down." Lucas's eyes darkened, a dangerous spark igniting behind his drunken stare. Oh, I see. You refuse. Because you're always the boss, aren't you? The great Olivia, warden of the prison and warden of my life. Well, guess what, sweetheart? I never signed up to be your prisoner. Olivia winced. She had never meant to assert dominance over Lucas. She'd always tried to be supportive, but his insecurities about their roles had grown uncontrollable. His accusations were a knife twisting in wounds already deeply inflicted. I have never treated you like that, Lucas. You're letting your demons talk, not your heart. Lucas laughed bitterly, pushing himself away from the counter, swaying dangerously. My demons, huh? Maybe you're the demon here, always pushing me, comparing my failures to your success. Must feel nice to look down on me from that ivory tower of yours. His words pierced Olivia's composure. Stop it, Lucas, she warned, her voice tight with emotion. You know that's not true. But Lucas was beyond reason. He stumbled closer, voice rising. Do I? Or maybe I finally see clearly. I'm the disgraceful husband of the almighty warden, an embarrassment you can't bear. Just say it, Olivia. Admit you think you're better than me. Suddenly, Lucas slammed his fist against the kitchen table, the impact causing Olivia to flinch. He lost his balance, collapsing onto the tiled floor, groaning before lapsing into unconsciousness. Olivia stood frozen for a moment, heart pounding, hands shaking uncontrollably. This was the moment she had feared most. Lucas's rage had finally crossed the line. She felt broken, but within the shards of her despair, a fierce resolve was forming. Enough was enough. Without hesitating further, Olivia grabbed her phone, dialing quickly. Patrick, she spoke firmly, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her. Send the car and some discreet help, immediately. Patrick's voice was cautious, yet curious. Trouble at home, Olivia? More like trouble that needs immediate intervention. You're the boss, I'll handle it. Lucas remained unconscious as Patrick arrived with 2 trusted guards. Olivia watched silently as her husband was gently carried from their home into the waiting vehicle, her heart heavy yet strangely resolute. Tonight, Lucas would face the reality she confronted daily, the harsh, unyielding walls of a prison cell. Are you sure about this, Olivia? Patrick whispered quietly, clearly concerned. Olivia nodded. It's the only way. He needs to see the end result of this path he's chosen. Patrick nodded solemnly, gesturing for the guards to proceed. The drive to the prison felt surreal. Olivia stared blankly ahead, the headlights illuminating dark streets, her mind replaying every painful moment of their marriage, every plea ignored, every hope shattered by Lucas's drinking. This was her final attempt at salvation. Upon arriving at the correctional facility, Olivia watched silently as Lucas was placed into a high-security female cell block, a section notorious for housing inmates convicted of violent crimes, some directly linked to abusive, alcoholic husbands. She stood alone afterward, gazing at the locked cell doors, praying she was doing the right thing. Deep down, a nagging doubt lingered. Was she saving him, or had she just made the worst mistake of her life? Exhausted, Olivia turned away. Dawn was approaching rapidly, and the chaos that would erupt once Lucas awoke was inevitable. But one thing was certain. After tonight, their lives would never be the same. Lucas groaned softly as consciousness slowly returned, his mind sluggish and clouded. He could feel the cold, unforgiving hardness of the floor beneath him, the distinct scent of bleach and concrete filling his nostrils. Opening his eyes felt impossible, but as he forced them open, the reality hit him with dizzying clarity. He was lying on the floor of a prison cell. Disorientation flooded his senses as he scrambled upright, his heart racing wildly. The cell was dimly lit, harsh fluorescent bulbs casting uneven shadows on grimy walls. Panic set in instantly as Lucas realized he wasn't alone. Eyes, female eyes, stared back at him with a mixture of suspicion, hostility, and eerie amusement. A voice sliced through his confusion, authoritative and chilling. "Well, what do we have here?" The speaker was Vivian. Tall, intimidating, her cold eyes glinting dangerously beneath the sharp edges of her dark hair. Lucas's stomach churned as her gaze pierced him. I don't understand," Lucas stammered, his voice hoarse from dehydration and lingering drunkenness. He searched desperately for an explanation. "There's been some kind of mistake." Vivian stepped closer, her movement deliberate and threatening. "No mistake here, Mr. Lawyer. You've been placed exactly where your warden wife wants you." Lucas flinched visibly. "Olivia did this?" A cynical smile spread across Vivian's lips. "Oh yes. Seems she's finally tired of your nonsense. Can't say I blame her." From the corner, another voice timidly broke the tension. "Give him a break, Vivian. He looks like he's had enough." Lucas turned to see a younger woman, pale and fragile-looking. Emily. Her large, fearful eyes held an innocence and sadness that immediately drew Lucas in. "Emily, stay out of this," Vivian snapped, though her harshness softened slightly. Clearly Emily was a favorite, or at least someone Vivian protected. Lucas steadied himself against the wall, attempting composure despite his trembling hands. "What is this place? Why am I in here? With all of you?" Rachel laughed bitterly from her cot. "Welcome to the special cell, lawyer. Reserved for women who've taken drastic measures against men like you. Men who can't put the bottle down or their fists away." I've never," Lucas protested, but Rachel cut him off. "Save it," she said coldly. "We know your type." Vivian waved her hand, silencing Rachel. "Sit down, Mr. Lawyer. You might as well get comfortable. We have all night." Lucas hesitated, then sank slowly onto a vacant cot. He buried his head in his hands, trying desperately to piece together the events leading him here. The arguments, the fights, Olivia's quiet tears, all spiraled in his mind like a storm. Zoe, seated quietly in a shadowed corner, finally spoke, her voice a delicate tremble. "What did you do to make your wife this desperate?" Lucas looked up, stricken by Zoe's sincere curiosity. "I drank. Too much, too often. Lost control of everything, my life, my career, my marriage." "Why?" Emily asked softly. Her innocence was genuine, her question startlingly insightful. Lucas exhaled deeply. "Because I thought it would numb the pain of failing, of disappointing Olivia, of being nothing." Vivian stared at him, skeptical yet intrigued. "Funny how that works, isn't it? The more you drink to escape pain, the deeper it drags you into darkness." Rachel glanced toward Lucas, her eyes briefly softening. "You know, I had a husband like you once. Charming, successful, but alcohol twisted him into a monster." Lucas looked up sharply, her words cutting deep. "Did you hurt him?" Rachel's face darkened, voice thick with emotion. "I did worse. I destroyed us both." The cell fell silent, tension palpable in every quiet breath. Suddenly, the corridor outside echoed with footsteps, guards performing nightly rounds. Lucas instinctively rose, calling out desperately, "Hey, this is a mistake, let me out." Vivian shot up instantly, gripping Lucas's shoulder fiercely. "Quiet. You don't want them coming in here, trust me." Lucas froze at the deadly intensity in her eyes, understanding dawning slowly. This was no ordinary holding cell. Whatever Olivia's intentions, he'd been placed among the most dangerous women in the facility. Women whose stories resonated deeply with his own tragic choices. Emily broke the heavy silence. "Maybe your wife is trying to save you," she whispered softly, her eyes filled with haunting pain. "Maybe she wants you to see what alcohol did to us." Vivian scoffed, but Lucas's heart twisted sharply, Emily's words resonating deeply. Olivia's purpose became clearer, brutal yet possibly redemptive. The realization crashed over him in waves, relentless and unforgiving. The room settled again into uncomfortable silence, the women retreating into their private thoughts. Lucas stared blankly at the cold walls, memories flooding him. His once successful life, his marriage slowly torn apart by his drinking, Olivia's broken expression night after night. Lucas rose suddenly, his desperation bubbling to the surface. "Emily, why are you here?" Emily hesitated, glancing nervously at Vivian, who nodded slightly, granting permission. "Because of lies," Emily whispered, her voice quivering. "Someone set me up. Someone powerful, someone untouchable." "Who?" Lucas's voice tightened. Emily hesitated, frightened. I can't," Vivian interjected firmly. "Not tonight, that's enough." Lucas stared helplessly at Emily's terrified expression, his lawyer's instincts reawakening. Emily's words gnawed at his conscience, igniting a spark within him, one he hadn't felt in years. "You were a lawyer, weren't you?" Vivian's voice broke his thoughts sharply. Lucas nodded cautiously. "Then maybe your wife did us a favor," Vivian mused darkly, eyes gleaming. "Perhaps you'll be useful here after all." The statement chilled Lucas to the core, yet beneath his fear, determination stirred. He glanced toward Emily, seeing clearly the shadow of injustice weighing her down. "I'll help you," Lucas declared quietly but resolutely, startling even himself. "Whatever it takes." Vivian's smirk widened, intrigue evident. Rachel regarded him warily, Zoe nodded encouragingly, and Emily's tearful eyes held tentative hope. As Lucas settled back against the wall, the first genuine feeling of purpose he'd felt in years ignited within his chest, warm yet fragile. Olivia's harsh lesson had unexpectedly given him something he'd lost: clarity, resolve, and perhaps a chance at redemption. Outside, dawn approached quietly, unaware of the chaos it would illuminate come morning. The first hints of daylight crept timidly through the barred window, painting the bleak cell walls in muted greys. The shadows slowly retreated, leaving Lucas sitting in contemplative silence. His initial panic had faded into weary acceptance, replaced by an urgency to understand why Olivia had put him here, and more crucially, how he could help Emily. The women around him gradually stirred. Rachel stretched, yawning, her expression still guarded. Zoe remained curled up in her corner, eyes wide and watchful. Emily's frail form was silhouetted by the dim light, quietly observing Lucas, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Vivian was already up, leaning against the bars with a calculated intensity, her sharp gaze scanning the hallway. She finally turned to Lucas, her voice low yet commanding. "You realize you've gotten yourself involved in something complicated, lawyer?" Lucas sighed, rubbing his aching temples. "Complicated doesn't scare me anymore, but Emily's case, it's personal. I need to know the truth." Vivian considered him for a moment, weighing her options. "The truth can destroy as easily as it heals, Mr. Lawyer. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Lucas met her challenging stare without flinching. "I've been hiding from reality long enough. I need answers." Vivian nodded slowly, motioning toward Emily. "Tell him, Emily. If he's going to help, he needs the full story." Emily hesitated, her trembling fingers pulling nervously at her sleeve. After a tense moment, she drew a deep breath and spoke softly. "I was framed for murder. They said I killed my stepmother's boyfriend, but I didn't." Her voice broke slightly, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. Lucas moved closer, kneeling to be at eye level, his voice gentle yet firm. "Who would frame you? Who had the motive?" Emily hesitated again, glancing at Rachel with a mix of fear and accusation that Lucas immediately noticed. Rachel tensed visibly, her shoulders stiffening defensively. "Rachel," Vivian prompted coldly, "perhaps it's your turn to share." Rachel's eyes flashed defensively. I have nothing to do with this. My story's different. I lost everything because of my husband's drinking. Why would I frame Emily? Because your husband wasn't just a drunk, Zoe suddenly whispered from her corner, voice trembling but clear. He had debts. Huge debts. Emily's stepmother and her boyfriend were loan sharks. You knew them. They ruined you, Rachel. Everyone knows it. A shocked silence engulfed the cell. Rachel looked stricken, her face draining of color. I didn't, she stammered, visibly shaken. Vivian interjected sharply. You did, but perhaps not in the way we imagined. Tell him the truth, Rachel. Rachel took a shaky breath, visibly fighting internal demons. Yes, I knew them. My husband got mixed up with them, but I never wanted anyone hurt, especially not Emily. Her stepmother was ruthless. She arranged everything. She needed a scapegoat, and Emily was the easiest target. Lucas's eyes narrowed, pieces rapidly clicking into place. Your husband's debts. Was alcohol involved? Rachel nodded, tears brimming. It destroyed him, destroyed us. When I found out they'd framed Emily, I confronted them, threatened to expose them. But they turned it around, threatening my children. So I stayed silent. I became a coward. Lucas's voice hardened with determination. We can still fix this. We can expose them. Justice can still be served. Vivian laughed bitterly. Justice? In here, lawyer, justice is an illusion. Those people are powerful. They control everything, even from behind bars. Lucas rose slowly, his resolve unwavering. Then we fight back. Olivia put me here for a reason. Maybe this is it. To uncover the truth, to do what's right. As Lucas spoke, footsteps echoed again, quicker this time. The cell door abruptly opened, revealing Patrick standing grimly, accompanied by 2 guards. Lucas, Olivia wants you, Patrick announced sharply, avoiding eye contact with the prisoners. Come on. Lucas hesitated, looking back at Emily. Her frightened, hopeful eyes implored him silently. He turned to Patrick. Give me a minute. Patrick frowned, but stepped back reluctantly. Lucas approached Emily, crouching again to meet her anxious gaze. I promise, Emily. I'll help you. I won't let this go. Emily's eyes filled with tears, gratitude mingling with lingering doubt. Why would you help me? Because it's the right thing to do, Lucas replied firmly, standing tall as Patrick impatiently cleared his throat. Walking past Vivian, Lucas paused momentarily. You knew all this time, didn't you? Why didn't you speak up sooner? Vivian's eyes flashed, her voice suddenly raw and vulnerable. Because hope is dangerous here, Lucas. It breaks more hearts than it heals. But maybe, just maybe, you're different. Lucas nodded silently, stepping through the cell door. As the guards escorted him away, Patrick finally spoke, his voice strained. Lucas, be careful. This goes deeper than you think. Lucas stopped abruptly, turning sharply to face Patrick. What aren't you telling me? Patrick hesitated, glancing cautiously around before lowering his voice urgently. Someone high up wanted Emily buried forever. Your old law colleagues, they're involved. Olivia doesn't know the half of it, and if she finds out, it could destroy her. Lucas felt the earth shift beneath his feet. This revelation was worse than he'd imagined. Then we have to protect her, Patrick. Patrick's gaze hardened with reluctant agreement. We can try, but be careful who you trust. Even Olivia's not safe, not anymore. Lucas's heart sank, the complexity of the tangled web before him overwhelming. Yet within this storm of secrets, betrayal and danger, Lucas found a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. As they stepped into Olivia's office, her worried eyes met Lucas's determined stare. Unspoken words filled the heavy silence between them, conveying pain, regret, but also fierce love. Lucas spoke softly, yet resolutely, his words a promise and a challenge. We need to talk, Olivia. About Emily, about the truth, about everything. Lucas stepped into Olivia's office, feeling a strange heaviness settle upon him. Her usually pristine desk was cluttered, a reflection of the turmoil clearly visible in her tired eyes. Olivia motioned silently for the guards to leave, waiting until the heavy door clicked shut before speaking. "Lucas," she started softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know what else to do." Her words wavered, heavy with emotion and exhaustion. "I know," Lucas replied gently, feeling a deep pang of regret. "But there's something bigger going on here, Olivia. Emily's innocent. She's been framed, and it involves people we know, people I once trusted." Olivia sank slowly into her chair, visibly shaken. "What do you mean?" Lucas stepped closer, leaning on the edge of her desk, his voice tight with urgency. "Patrick warned me. He said there's a conspiracy within this prison, something dangerous. He thinks you might be a target. Olivia, we can't ignore this. We need to uncover the truth." Olivia stared at him, disbelief turning slowly into a grim realization. "Patrick? He's been by my side for years. Are you sure?" Lucas shook his head slowly. "Right now, I don't know who we can trust. But I do know Emily deserves justice, and whatever's happening here could destroy everything we've built. You've always fought for justice, Olivia. Help me now." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, the facade of authority finally cracking. "I'm scared, Lucas. It's bigger than us. What if we lose everything?" Lucas reached out gently, taking her trembling hand. "Then we fight anyway. I spent too many years running away from problems. Now I need to face them, for Emily, for you, especially for us." Olivia squeezed his hand tightly, a silent agreement passing between them. A soft knock interrupted the intimate moment, startling both of them. The door opened slightly, revealing Zoe's timid figure standing hesitantly in the doorway, flanked by guards. "Zoe?" Olivia asked gently, concerned by her fragile demeanor. "What is it?" Zoe stepped nervously inside, glancing anxiously between Lucas and Olivia. "I know I'm risking everything by speaking, but there's something else you need to know. It involves Patrick and Vivian." Lucas exchanged an alarmed glance with Olivia. "Tell us everything," he encouraged softly. Zoe took a shaky breath, gathering her courage. "Vivian runs more than just our cell block. She controls an underground network, information, secrets, contraband. Patrick supplies her. I heard them. They plan to ruin Olivia, framing her for corruption, replacing her with someone loyal to their operation." The revelation stunned them both. Olivia's grip on Lucas's hand tightened almost painfully. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Olivia asked, visibly shaken but maintaining composure. Zoe looked down in shame. "Fear. Vivian has power. Patrick has influence. If they knew I told you, I wouldn't survive another night." Lucas stepped forward protectively. "You're safe now, Zoe. You did the right thing." Olivia quickly regained her authoritative demeanor, determination sparking in her eyes. "We need proof, Zoe. Something solid. Can you help us get that?" Zoe nodded resolutely, newfound courage radiating from her. "I'll try." "Thank you," Olivia replied sincerely, signaling the guards to safely escort Zoe back. Once alone, Olivia paced nervously, frustration evident in her tight expression. "Patrick, I trusted him implicitly. How could I be so blind?" Lucas watched her sympathetically, understanding her pain intimately. "We often overlook betrayal from those closest to us. But Olivia, we still have a chance to fix this, to end this corruption. You and me, we're stronger together." Olivia paused mid-step, facing Lucas with vulnerability she'd rarely shown. "I've never felt so helpless, Lucas. I built this place believing I could make a difference. Now everything's crumbling around me." Lucas stepped forward, gently pulling her into his embrace. feeling her tension slowly ease. "You've made a difference, Olivia, more than you'll ever know. But right now, we have to protect you. I'll handle the investigation into Patrick. Trust me on this." Olivia rested her head on his shoulder, whispering quietly, "I've always trusted you, Lucas, even when you didn't trust yourself." Their quiet moment was shattered by an abrupt, harsh buzzing from Olivia's intercom. Olivia reluctantly separated, pressing the speaker button. "Yes?" she asked, regaining her professional tone. "Warden," the voice crackled urgently. "There's a disturbance in cell block C. You need to come immediately." Olivia's eyes met Lucas's, concern deepening. "Let's go." Rushing to the cell block, chaos awaited. Guards struggled to maintain order, inmates yelling and pounding on bars, demanding answers. At the center stood Vivian, calmly observing the disorder with calculating eyes, clearly orchestrating events. Olivia approached her firmly, authority radiating from her stance. "Vivian, what's the meaning of this?" Vivian's eyes gleamed dangerously. "Just a reminder, Warden. You might hold the keys, but you don't control this prison, not anymore." Lucas stepped forward protectively. "We know everything, Vivian. Patrick, your plans, it's over." Vivian laughed mockingly. "It's never over, lawyer. You think you're saving this place? You've only sealed your fate, and Olivia's." Olivia stood tall, voice unwavering. "You underestimate us, Vivian. This prison belongs to justice, not you." Vivian smiled coldly, leaning close. "We'll see." As order slowly returned, Lucas felt dread deepening. Their confrontation had only begun, and Vivian's threats weren't empty. Olivia returned to her office, visibly shaken but resolute. Lucas followed quietly, shutting the door behind them. "Lucas," Olivia began softly, her voice thick with emotion, "this fight could destroy us both." Lucas approached her gently, taking her face tenderly in his hands. "Then we face it together. Whatever happens, we'll protect each other. We've come too far to back down now." A tear escaped Olivia's careful restraint, sliding down her cheek. Lucas wiped it gently away, determination shining in his eyes. In that quiet moment, amidst uncertainty and danger, both Olivia and Lucas understood the gravity of their promise. United, they were stronger, driven by the shared resolve to confront the corruption and betrayal festering within the prison walls. Yet deep inside, Lucas knew their path would become darker, more dangerous, before any hope of redemption or justice emerged. Night had settled thickly around the prison, bringing an eerie quietness that seemed heavy with hidden threats. Olivia sat alone in her dimly lit office, staring at the pile of documents before her. The words blurred together, her mind restless, swirling with thoughts of Patrick's betrayal and Vivian's sinister promise. Each revelation seemed to chip away at her strength, making her question everything she'd built. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts, startling her from contemplation. Olivia straightened, quickly regaining her composure. "Come in," she commanded firmly, her voice betraying none of her inner turmoil. The door opened cautiously, revealing Patrick's familiar figure. Olivia felt her heart clench painfully as anger and sorrow battled within her. "Olivia, we need to talk," Patrick began carefully, attempting to maintain an air of normalcy. "Do we?" Olivia replied coldly, narrowing her eyes slightly. She studied his features, noticing for the first time a hardness she'd overlooked for years. Patrick hesitated briefly, sensing the subtle hostility in her tone. He moved forward cautiously, taking a seat opposite her. "I don't know what Lucas has been telling you, but you need to hear my side." Olivia leaned back, crossing her arms defensively. "Go ahead, Patrick. Explain why you betrayed everything we built." Patrick exhaled deeply, running his hand nervously through his hair. "It wasn't supposed to go this far, Olivia. At first, it was just small favors, information exchanges. Vivian had leverage, threats against my family, things spiraled out of control. You expect me to believe that? Olivia's voice was sharp, cutting through his attempts at justification. After everything we've faced together? Patrick's face contorted with genuine anguish, his voice raw. I made terrible mistakes, Olivia, but I want to fix this before it's too late. Vivian's planning something huge, and it involves taking you down. She wants total control. I'm just a pawn. Olivia studied Patrick carefully, conflicted. Despite the sting of betrayal, she could see genuine fear and regret in his eyes. If you're telling the truth, prove it. Tell me everything about Vivian's plan. Patrick hesitated, glancing around nervously, his voice barely audible. She's coordinating a riot. Not random, strategic. It'll expose alleged corruption on your watch, making you the scapegoat. Then she'll have someone else installed, someone loyal to her. She's got backing from influential outsiders, people you and Lucas used to know very well. Olivia's blood ran cold, her mind rapidly piecing together fragments. Who are these outsiders? Former colleagues of Lucas, people he once trusted. They want revenge, Olivia, against Lucas, against you. Emily's framing was just the beginning. A chill settled over Olivia. The depth of the conspiracy was staggering. Patrick's admission only confirmed her deepest fears. Why Emily? Why target someone so vulnerable? She was just an easy scapegoat. Her stepmother's boyfriend had information damaging enough to topple their entire network. They needed him gone, and Emily was convenient. But they underestimated Lucas's involvement, and yours. Olivia leaned forward, determination replacing her initial shock. How do we stop it? Patrick met her gaze steadily. We don't, not alone. We need Lucas. I know I don't deserve your trust, but please believe me when I say this, Lucas is the key. He has information, knowledge that could unravel everything. Olivia considered Patrick's words carefully, torn between suspicion and desperation. Finally, she nodded reluctantly. All right, but understand this, Patrick. Betray me again, and I promise you'll regret it. Patrick nodded solemnly. I'll accept whatever comes. Right now, stopping Vivian is all that matters. Just then, Lucas appeared in the doorway, having overheard enough to grasp the gravity of their conversation. He approached cautiously, exchanging a wary glance with Patrick before speaking softly to Olivia. I heard enough. Patrick's right. I think I know who's behind this, my former colleagues at the firm. They were involved in some shady dealings. I never fully understood until now just how deep it went. Olivia's expression softened slightly, trust visible in her eyes as she met Lucas's gaze. Do you think we can still expose them? Lucas nodded resolutely. We have to. Emily's freedom, your reputation, and possibly our lives depend on it. But Patrick's right. We need to act fast. Patrick rose swiftly, his urgency palpable. Then let's move. I can give you access to evidence that might help, but it won't be easy. Vivian has eyes everywhere. As they left Olivia's office, tension thickened around them. Lucas fell into step beside Olivia, quietly squeezing her hand in reassurance. She returned the gesture gently, grateful for the unity between them despite overwhelming uncertainty. They navigated the prison's darkened corridors, reaching a heavily secured records room. Patrick quickly bypassed security protocols, ushering Lucas and Olivia inside. Files and records filled the room, decades of prison history captured meticulously. Patrick moved swiftly to a hidden safe, inputting codes known only to him. Pulling out a small hard drive, he handed it carefully to Lucas. Everything's here. Proof of Vivian's network, financial records, communications. Use it wisely. Suddenly, alarms blared loudly throughout the prison. The sound was deafening, startling them all. Vivian must have discovered what we're doing. Patrick shouted urgently, Get out, fast! Lucas tucked the hard drive securely into his pocket, grabbing Olivia's hand tightly. Come on, we have to move. They sprinted through the corridors, chaos erupting around them. Guards rushed to contain growing disturbances, inmates screamed threats, the prison descending into mayhem orchestrated by Vivian's calculated strategy. Olivia stopped abruptly, pulling Lucas close amidst the panic. Lucas, whatever happens, promise me we'll see this through together. Lucas gazed deeply into her determined eyes, his voice unwavering despite the chaos surrounding them. Together. Always. Their pledge echoed in the chaos, binding them in strength and determination, yet both understood the dangers ahead were immense, filled with unseen threats and heartbreaking betrayals. As the prison descended further into disorder, Vivian's cold laughter echoed somewhere distant, yet hauntingly clear. The battle lines were drawn, alliances tested, and only truth and trust could save them now. The alarms wailed through the prison like a relentless siren of doom, bouncing off concrete walls, vibrating deep into the bones of every soul within. Chaos erupted. Olivia clutched Lucas's hand tightly as they ducked into a side hallway, narrowly avoiding a group of guards running in the opposite direction. "This isn't just a distraction," Olivia said breathlessly. "Vivian's escalating things faster than we thought." Lucas nodded, scanning the corridor. "She's trying to bury the truth in the noise. We need to get that drive to someone we can trust." "We can't leave the prison," Olivia replied quickly. "The facility's on lockdown. Patrick's gone dark. He was supposed to meet us in the south stairwell." Her voice trembled. Something rare, something that made Lucas pause. He turned to her, his face softened despite the tension. "Hey, look at me. We're going to get through this. I've got your back, always." She nodded, swallowing hard. But something shifted in her eyes. A flicker of vulnerability beneath the iron. She opened her mouth to speak, but hesitated, then shook her head as if pushing the thought away. They moved swiftly through the maze of corridors, eventually ducking into Olivia's private quarters. The room, usually a place of order and control, now felt like a fragile sanctuary amid the rising storm. Lucas secured the door behind them, while Olivia retrieved a secure lockbox from beneath the floorboards. Inside, she tucked the hard drive carefully between coded files. "Even if they tear this place apart, they won't find it here," she said, sealing it shut. Lucas approached her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "You hesitated earlier. What were you about to say?" Olivia exhaled slowly, as though she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "Lucas, I need to tell you something I've never admitted. Not to you, not even to myself." He stayed silent, waiting. She sat down on the edge of the bed, her back straight, but her voice low. "I married you because I saw in you everything I wanted to believe about the world. Intelligence, compassion, strength. But when you started drinking, I felt like I was reliving my childhood again, watching my father spiral into his demons, watching my mother fade." Lucas sat beside her, eyes wide with realization. He hadn't known, he'd always assumed she was angry with him, disappointed maybe. But fear, trauma, that hit differently. "I wasn't just angry at you," she continued, her voice cracking. "I was terrified. Every night you came home drunk, every time you lashed out with words you didn't mean. I wasn't seeing you, Lucas. I was seeing him, and I hated myself for it." Lucas placed his hand gently over hers. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" She looked at him, a single tear escaping despite her best efforts. "Because I wanted to believe I was stronger than that. That I'd buried that past so deep it could never touch me again. But I was wrong, and I didn't know how to love you through that pain. So instead I tried to control everything, to keep it from slipping through my fingers again." Lucas felt the weight of her words settle over him like a mantle. His throat tightened. "Olivia, I never wanted to become the kind of man that hurt you. But I did, not with fists, but with silence. With the nights I didn't come home, with the way I stopped fighting for myself. "You're fighting now," she said softly. "I see it, and so am I. Maybe that's enough for us to begin again." They sat there in the silence, the storm raging outside their door, and in that moment, it felt like the first peace they'd known in years. It was a reconciliation not born of apologies, but of mutual understanding, of truths laid bare and finally accepted. Just then, Olivia's radio crackled. A voice came through, urgent, panicked. "Warden, cell block B is breaching. Multiple inmates outside containment. We need direction." Olivia snapped into action, standing quickly. "We have to go. If Vivian's behind this, she's moving her pawns into play." Lucas followed her through the emergency access route behind the wall. They emerged near the central control deck. From the upper level, Olivia surveyed the escalating riot. Fires burned in trash cans. Inmates screamed and shoved guards. But among them, one figure moved with unnatural calm. Vivian. Lucas spotted her too. She wasn't trying to escape. She was orchestrating the chaos like a conductor directing a symphony. "She's baiting us," Olivia whispered. "Or buying time," Lucas added grimly. "She knows she's exposed now. She might be trying to destroy the last of the evidence." They rushed to the command center. Olivia input override commands, locking down high-risk access points. Lucas scanned incoming reports, triangulating Vivian's last known movements. Suddenly, the screen went black. A single message flashed. "Olivia, you never learned. You can't cage what was born in chaos. V." Olivia stared, heart pounding. "She's coming here, for me." Lucas grabbed the emergency intercom, broadcasting to the entire facility. "This is Lucas Barrett. All personnel, fall back to your designated zones. Do not engage with inmate Vivian Holloway. She is considered high risk and armed with classified intel." Guards responded immediately. Inmates began to retreat, the riot shifting from chaos to confusion. Olivia turned to Lucas, breathless. "Where did you learn to speak like that?" "Courtroom voice," he said with a half grin. "Hadn't used it in a while." A sudden bang echoed from below. "She's here," Olivia whispered. Lucas reached for the hidden weapon beneath the console, handing it to her. "Let's finish this." Moments later, the steel door to the command center swung open. Vivian stood in the doorway, a slow clap echoing off the walls. She looked almost regal in her defiance. "What a pair," she sneered. "The reformed drunk and the frightened little girl who grew up to wear a badge. Tell me, Olivia, has he begged for your forgiveness yet?" "No," Olivia replied calmly, "because I didn't need him to. I needed him to change. And he did." Lucas stepped forward. "It's over, Vivian. We have everything. The files, the names, the accounts." Vivian smiled like a chess master losing gracefully. "Then I guess you'd better be ready for what comes next. Because you just declared war on people far above your pay grade." She didn't resist as the guards surrounded her. She even offered her wrists willingly. "You think this is the end," she whispered to Olivia. "But it's just your beginning." As she was led away, Olivia slumped against the wall, the adrenaline finally ebbing. Lucas knelt beside her, brushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "No, but I will be," he smiled. "Same here." In the dim light of the command center, surrounded by shattered screens and the residue of chaos, they held each other. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And sometimes that was the first step back to something worth saving. Lucas sat alone in the small legal library adjacent to Olivia's office, the weight of the hard drive pressing against his chest like a ticking time bomb. The hum of fluorescent lights overhead and the distant echoes of guards calling out shift changes created a surreal calm after the chaos. He scrolled through files, eyes darting across emails, payment trails, encrypted messages. all pointing to a sophisticated network of corruption. Vivian had just been the visible part of a far-reaching conspiracy. Behind her agenda were names Lucas recognized with a cold stab to the heart, former colleagues, law firm partners, and even a retired judge who once mentored him. They hadn't just framed Emily, they had built a system designed to crush anyone who got in the way. He leaned back in the chair, closing his eyes briefly. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from anger. This wasn't just about Emily anymore, it was about every person steamrolled by this machine. And it was about who he had once been. A man who walked away when things got dirty, who let guilt drive him to the bottle instead of the truth. No more. Olivia entered quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. She set one down next to him, her presence a grounding force. "You've been at it all night," she said gently. "I have enough to reopen Emily's case," he replied, voice hoarse. "But I'm going to need help. Real legal firepower." She nodded. "I made some calls. There's one person who might help, Marcus Hale. You knew him from law school, right?" Lucas blinked. "Marcus? He was the only one who called me after my meltdown. Last I heard, he was working for a non-profit innocence project." "He still is," Olivia said, sliding her phone across the desk. "He's on his way." Lucas looked at her, emotion catching in his throat. "Thank you for not giving up on me." She smiled, brushing his knuckles with her fingertips. "We both had to fall apart before we could rebuild." Marcus Hale arrived 3 hours later, worn leather briefcase in one hand, resolve in his eyes. The reunion between him and Lucas was quiet but heavy with meaning. "When Olivia called, I didn't even let her finish," Marcus said. "If what you have is solid, we're not just reopening Emily's case, we're pulling down a legal empire." Lucas handed him a printed dossier, detailing everything from witness tampering to financial incentives for guilty verdicts. "It's all here," Lucas said. "We even have recorded conversations Patrick pulled from internal prison audio logs." Vivian bragged about everything. Marcus read in silence, face tightening with every page. This is enough to light a fire under the Attorney General, but it won't be easy. They'll fight dirty." "Let them," Lucas replied. "They're not the only ones who can fight." 2 weeks later, the preliminary hearing to reopen Emily's case began. The courtroom buzzed with quiet anticipation. News had leaked, journalists packing the back rows, their cameras flashing as Lucas entered. Emily sat beside him at the defendant's table, her eyes wide with disbelief, fingers shaking. "I can't believe this is happening," she whispered. Lucas leaned close. "Believe it. We're not here to beg for justice. We're here to demand it." The judge, a stern-faced woman named Eleanor Sykes, reviewed the submitted motion. Her expression gave nothing away. But as she read through the evidence, something changed. Her brow furrowed, her gaze snapped toward the prosecution's bench, where the district attorney sat rigid. "Mr. Barrett," Judge Sykes said, peering over her glasses, "you are aware of the consequences of filing fraudulent materials in my court?" "Yes, Your Honor," Lucas said firmly, "which is why I brought only the truth." Judge Sykes set the folder down and leaned forward. "Proceed." One by one, witnesses took the stand. Zoe, her voice shaking but clear. Rachel in tears, finally admitting what she knew and how fear had made her complicit. Even Patrick testified, his career sacrificed, but his conscience finally clear. The most damning testimony came from a surprise witness, an IT contractor who had worked with the corrupted law firm. Under oath, he admitted to falsifying timestamps and destroying digital evidence on their orders. Lucas stood to deliver his final argument. The courtroom fell into a hushed silence. "Your Honor," he began, voice steady, "this isn't just about Emily. It's about how easily the system can be manipulated when the wrong people hold power. It's about how we failed her, all of us. and how we must now do right by her. He looked toward Emily, who held back tears. She deserves her life back, and the people who took it from her should face the consequences. Judge Sykes sat in silence for a long moment, then she closed the file. Motion to vacate the original conviction is granted. Ms. Emily Carter, you are hereby released from custody. The room erupted. Journalists surged forward. Olivia stood in the back, her hand pressed over her mouth as tears filled her eyes. Lucas turned to Emily, and before she could speak, her grandmother appeared in the crowd, arms outstretched. "My baby girl," she sobbed. Emily ran to her, collapsing into the embrace. The weight of years spent in injustice lifted in a moment of raw, pure humanity. Lucas watched, heart heavy but full. Olivia moved beside him. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it," he corrected, squeezing her hand. Marcus joined them, grin wide. "You just rattled the entire state legal system." Lucas nodded slowly. "Good. Let them be afraid. We're just getting started." The morning after Emily's release dawned with the quiet before a storm. Outside the courthouse, media vans lined the street. Protesters and supporters had gathered, their signs clashing in message and meaning. Inside, Olivia stood by the window of her office, watching the chaos unfold beyond the iron gates. "They're not going away," she muttered, almost to herself. Lucas, seated nearby with a thick binder open on his lap, didn't look up. "No, they've been waiting for a crack in the system. Now they've found one, and they're afraid of what we'll expose next." Emily's case had opened a floodgate. Since the verdict, Olivia and Lucas had received anonymous messages, leaked files, even a confidential letter from a junior prosecutor who had been pressured to withhold evidence in other cases. What had started as one woman's fight for justice had evolved into a statewide reckoning, and the backlash had begun. That morning, Olivia had found a dead bird nailed to her office door. Lucas's tires had been slashed outside his apartment. Patrick, now under federal protection, had intercepted a message about a cleanup order targeting anyone cooperating with Lucas. Still, they pressed forward. Today, Lucas would present a formal deposition to the State Ethics Committee, laying out a case for systemic corruption. But it wouldn't just be documents and testimony. The accused, several powerful figures, had lawyered up, called in favors, and prepared to turn Lucas into an example. It was a trial outside the courtroom, one he wasn't sure he could win. The hearing was held in a somber grey building, far from the drama of criminal court. The State Bar's Ethics Oversight Board was made up of senior judges, attorneys, and a single civilian representative. They sat behind a curved bench like the arbiters of fate. Lucas entered with Marcus at his side. Olivia chose to sit in the gallery, out of the spotlight but firmly present. Emily, though now free, had opted to stay away, her nerves still frayed and her heart not yet ready to return to the place where everything had been stolen from her. "Lucas Barrett," the chairwoman of the board announced, "you've requested this hearing to present evidence of legal misconduct involving former and current officers of the court. Do you understand the risks?" "Yes," Lucas replied. "I do, and I accept them." The board gave him 40 minutes. Lucas started with the smallest details: a falsified timestamp, a discrepancy in a plea deal, a missing forensic report. Each example on its own seemed like a clerical error. But as he built his case, layer by layer, the room grew colder. Then came the names. Judge Harlan Pierce signed off on rulings he never read. "I have sworn affidavits from 2 clerks." Gasps echoed. The board shifted uncomfortably. Attorney Denise Foster received campaign contributions from the same corporation that funded the firm defending known traffickers. Her recusal was never disclosed. "And finally," Lucas said, his voice steady despite the sweat at his brow, 3 members of the State Bar, including one in this room, were part of a private email chain coordinating how to suppress cases like Emily Carter's. Silence. The board chairwoman turned pale. She glanced sideways at a colleague who suddenly couldn't meet her gaze. "Do you have proof of these claims, Mr. Barrett?" Lucas reached into his case file, producing a USB. "Everything is on here. Chain of custody is intact, verified by a third-party cybersecurity firm." Before she could respond, the doors burst open. 2 lawyers strode in, one of them visibly flustered. "Objection. We demand a postponement. This hearing is now a legal matter under judicial review." The chairwoman hesitated. Lucas stood his ground. Of course they want to delay, because time protects them, but what about the time Emily lost? What about the years others have spent rotting in cells because someone found it convenient? A moment passed that felt like eternity. Finally, the chairwoman spoke. "Mr. Barrett, we will take this under consideration. You'll be notified of our ruling within the week." As Lucas left the room, the glares followed him like knives. He knew this wasn't a victory. It was only the opening salvo. Outside, reporters mobbed him. Questions flew like arrows. Olivia shielded him with her arm, whispering, "We need to go, now." That night, they stayed at a safe house. Patrick joined them briefly, wearing a hoodie and a bulletproof vest under his jacket. "They're furious," he said, setting down a folder, "and they're fighting back. That email leak? It spooked them. They're trying to discredit you. They're digging up everything." "Let them," Lucas said tiredly. "I have nothing left to hide." Patrick opened the folder. "You do now. This is new. It's not about you. It's about Olivia." He handed the file to Lucas. Olivia leaned in, eyes narrowing. Inside were surveillance photos. Olivia meeting with a former inmate. Olivia speaking to an anonymous informant. Out-of-context shots meant to look like illicit deals. "They're going to paint you as part of a conspiracy," Patrick said. "Vivian's people may be in custody, but their allies are still in play." Olivia exhaled slowly. "They'll use me to destroy your credibility, make this look like a revenge campaign." Lucas looked at her, his heart aching. "Then we fight smarter. We don't just play defense, we go on the offensive. We go public." Patrick blinked. "You're talking about a full media campaign?" Lucas nodded. "With names, with stories, with every wrong we can prove." Olivia hesitated. "They'll come after our families, our friends." Lucas turned to her, eyes fierce. "Then we show them what happens when you try to bury the truth." The following day, Olivia and Lucas held a press conference outside the courthouse. Emily appeared beside them, now composed and defiant. Zoe and Rachel stood behind, survivors lending faces to the cause. Lucas addressed the crowd. "This isn't about revenge, it's about justice. The system is not broken because of one bad apple. It's compromised because too many people benefit from keeping it corrupt." He paused. "We are not afraid, and we will not stop." Reporters swarmed them afterward. Olivia gave a short, powerful statement. "I've run a prison long enough to know what real reform looks like. It doesn't start in boardrooms, it starts in truth." The video went viral within hours. Thousands of shares, supporters flooding social media. Donations began pouring into a legal defense fund Marcus had quietly set up. But with the attention came danger. That night, someone firebombed a car parked outside the safe house. No one was hurt, but the message was clear. This was war. The courtroom was standing room only. Cameras buzzed softly like insects, pointed at the front where Lucas sat beside Marcus, fingers interlocked in a white-knuckled grip. Olivia stood just behind the gallery rail, her presence a silent but resolute force. Today wasn't about Emily. Not anymore. Today was about tearing off the mask of a system that had weaponized silence. For weeks, the press conference had dominated headlines. The video of Lucas speaking beneath grey skies had become a rallying cry for a state and a nation questioning the integrity of its legal system. Donations had surged. Survivors had stepped forward, Retired judges, former inmates, even a few prosecutors had come out of hiding to say, enough. But with the rising support came rising pressure. Anonymous threats, smear campaigns, fabricated leaks. Every part of Lucas's life was now under scrutiny. His failures, his rehab record, even his former clients. Yet he remained standing. Because this time, he wasn't just fighting for justice. He was fighting for redemption. The lead prosecutor today was Thomas Arlo, a shark in a tailored suit. He represented the state, but everyone in the room knew he was also defending the old guard. Mr. Barrett, Arlo began during cross-examination, you've admitted to a history of alcohol abuse, yes? Lucas met his eyes without blinking. Yes. You were suspended from the bar. Correct. You once missed a court date, resulting in a mistrial? Yes. And now you want this court to believe that you, of all people, have uncovered a massive, far-reaching conspiracy involving dozens of officials. Lucas leaned forward. Not believe me. Look at the evidence. I didn't fabricate emails. I didn't pay off judges. I didn't threaten witnesses. Your friends did. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Arlo's jaw tightened. You've made quite a name for yourself, Mr. Barrett. A modern martyr, but even martyrs burn. Lucas smiled faintly. Better to burn in truth than drown in complicity. The judge called for a recess. Outside the courtroom, Lucas slumped onto a bench. Olivia knelt beside him, offering a bottle of water. You're killing it in there, she said, voice low. He exhaled, a sardonic smile playing at the corner of his lips. Feels more like I'm being killed. But you're still breathing. They sat together in the hallway as Marcus reviewed notes nearby. Across from them, Emily and her grandmother waited quietly. Rachel was with them too, visibly changed since her testimony. Zoe had returned to her cell, protected now, her status elevated among the inmates for her courage. As the recess ended, Olivia placed a hand over Lucas's. No matter what happens today, you did it. You changed something. That's more than most ever will. Lucas didn't respond. He just squeezed her hand. Back in session, the judge motioned for the final phase of testimony. The room stilled. From the back, a woman rose and stepped forward, nervous, young but determined. Her name was Layla Moore, a clerk who had worked for Judge Harlan Pierce. She took the stand and raised her right hand, swearing the oath. Ms. Moore, Marcus began, you contacted our legal team voluntarily. Yes, she said. I couldn't live with myself anymore. What did you witness? I was told to shred documents, emails, signed orders. They came from the judge's personal account. He called it spring cleaning, but I read them first. One was about Emily Carter's sentencing memo. It had been altered. Gasps again. Marcus continued, Are you willing to submit to official deposition under penalty of perjury? Yes. Lucas watched as the truth cracked open, a sealed vault of corruption. Next came a retired detective who had investigated Emily's stepmother. He admitted to being paid off to redirect attention away from key witnesses. Then came a tech expert who validated the metadata Lucas had submitted. Then silence. Finally, the judge leaned forward. I've seen enough, she said. Mr. Barrett, your petition has not only presented credible claims, it has laid the foundation for a formal investigation. As of this moment, Judge Harlan Pierce is under review for ethical misconduct. Several attorneys will be referred for disbarment procedures. The gallery erupted, cameras flashed, reporters bolted. But for Lucas, there was no celebration. Not yet. That evening, Lucas stood alone outside the courthouse, coat flapping in the cold wind. The press had moved on, chasing headlines. The crowd had dispersed. But the city felt changed, like a long frozen system had finally stirred. Olivia joined him. You did it, she whispered. No, he replied. We started it. She smiled. So, what happens now? Lucas stared into the fading light. We keep going. We help the next Emily, and the next, until there's no one left to silence. Silence stretched between them, but it was a peaceful one. Then Olivia reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a letter. This came today, addressed to both of us. He unfolded it. Thank you for not giving up, for being the reason I still believe in people. Emily. Lucas's hands trembled slightly. Redemption, he realized, never came all at once. It came in small notes, quiet victories, and the refusal to give up when it would be easier to walk away. He tucked the letter into his pocket, turned to Olivia, and smiled. Let's go home. Sunlight streamed through the high windows of the prison administration building, casting golden streaks across the stone floor. It was a new day, not just in the literal sense, but in every way that mattered. Olivia stood at the front of the warden's briefing room, addressing her staff for the first time since the storm had passed. There were new faces in the room, auditors, reform officers, and mental health specialists, all part of the restructuring initiative she had fought to bring in. Patrick was absent, relocated to a different facility under protection, and most of the old leadership had either resigned or been removed. She looked over her notes, then set them down. I had a speech prepared, she said, voice firm, but I think we've all had enough of speeches, so here's what I'll say. We lost our way. We let power protect itself instead of the people. But from today forward, that ends. She paused, letting the silence hang for a moment. This place was never meant to be a cage. It was meant to be a corridor, a bridge between mistakes and redemption, so from this point on, we will run it that way. There was a beat, then one of the senior guards, a quiet, no-nonsense woman named Simmons, stood up and clapped. One by one, the rest followed, not in loud, performative applause, but something smaller, more real, a quiet agreement. Down in cell block C, the atmosphere had shifted too. Vivian's influence was gone. She had been officially transferred to a federal holding facility pending criminal proceedings. The threat she once posed now seemed like a shadow retreating into a darker past. Zoe now led weekly discussion circles with other inmates. Emily had visited twice, not out of obligation but choice, standing before the women she once feared, offering hope and proof that change was possible. Rachel, once withdrawn and bitter, had started writing. Her handwritten story, part memoir and part warning, was already being circulated online under a pseudonym. It was raw, imperfect, and painfully honest. And Lucas? He had returned to court, but not to defend or prosecute. He was working alongside Marcus now, building a small legal advocacy group dedicated to fighting wrongful convictions. It had no office, no budget, and no political backing. But it had something better, a mission. Today he returned to the prison, not in chains or shame, but as a guest. As Olivia escorted him through the halls, familiar guards nodded with subtle respect. Some even smiled. You've been busy, she said, glancing sideways at him. He smirked. You weren't going to let me rot on a couch again. I figured I better do something worthwhile. As they entered the staff break room, he found a small gathering waiting for him. Zoe, Simmons, a few of the guards, even Emily was there, leaning against the back wall, sipping tea. They had arranged a simple cake. No cameras, no speeches, just a quiet thank you. Lucas looked around, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say, he murmured. Zoe smiled. You already said it. When you believed us, when no one else did. Rachel added from a nearby chair, you didn't fix everything, but you cracked it open. Sometimes that's all people need. A crack to crawl through. Lucas glanced at Olivia, who nodded slowly, pride gleaming in her eyes. Then let's keep cracking it open, he said, one case at a time. Later that evening, Olivia and Lucas sat on the rooftop of the administration building, legs dangling over the edge, watching the city glow in soft amber light. I used to hate this view, Olivia admitted, sipping from a mug of lukewarm coffee. Why? Lucas asked, curious. Because it made me feel small. Like all this noise, all this pain we dealt with down there didn't matter up here. Like no one cared. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, maybe it's not that they didn't care. Maybe they just didn't see it. You showed them. You made them look. She laughed softly. Don't get too poetic on me. I'm reformed, remember? He said with a wink. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Olivia turned toward him. You ever think about what's next? Not just cases or campaigns, but us. Lucas turned to face her. All the time. But I think we have to stop thinking of us as something to be recovered. We're not who we were. That version broke. What we have now, it's something new. She nodded slowly, understanding. And you're okay with that? He took her hand. I'm more than okay with it. I'm grateful. As the sky darkened and stars began to peek through, Olivia leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time in years, they felt light. Not because the battle was over, but because they finally believed they could win the next one, together. And that was the end of this unbelievable ride. From one drunken night to a prison riot, a legal war, and a shot at redemption. Who would have thought it all started with one broken man, one decision, and one woman who refused to give up? But now I want to hear from you. What moment hit you the hardest? Was it Vivian's final threat, Emily walking free, or that rooftop moment between Olivia and Lucas? Let's talk about it in the comments. If this story moved you, shocked you, or just kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell because we've got even more wild, emotional, twist-filled stories coming your way. You think this was intense? Just wait. This is Fanciko's story, where stories get raw, real, and unforgettable. Thanks for listening. See you in the next one.